In San Carlos, Argentine Air Force and naval planes bombed British ships in repeated attacks. Some bombs missed their targets. Others were ultimately successful. But fortunately for the British, 10 ships were hit by bombs that did not explode. Why was this? Successful bombing is more than just a question of hitting the target. The aircraft delivering the bomb must escape the resulting explosion. To ensure this, the tail of a bomb contains a delaying mechanism. This starts with a propeller in the tail. As the bomb falls, the propeller is freed and spins in the airflow. Inside the bomb, it unwinds an arming fork. After precisely 16.5 turns, the firing pin is freed. The firing pin is now separated from the detonator by just a light spring. When the bomb hits, the firing pin sets off the explosion. The ship's defenses forced the Argentine aircraft down low. As a result, many Air Force bombs did not explode. When a bomb is dropped from too low a height, the arming fork doesn't have time to unwind fully. The firing pin is unable to detonate the bomb. Argentine naval pilots, however, had an answer to this problem. They were fitting special tails to the standard bomb. The result is called a retarded bomb.
La bomba con cola retardada está hecha, diseñada especialmente para ser lanzada a baja altura, y el efecto de la retardante de la cola permite que el avión escape a la fragmentación que se produce en el momento de la explosión. Concretamente, el avión lanzador va a estar aproximadamente 400 metros delante de su bomba en el momento que la bomba haga impacto.
The retarded tail contains a parachute. With this relatively simple technology, naval pilots could attack successfully at low altitude. Had the Argentines solved their bombing problems, the Royal Navy might have lost the battle for San Carlos. Because of the intensity of the bombing, the British decided that they had to have earlier warning of incoming raids. To do this, they detached 2 ships. A Type 42 destroyer with its Sea Dart anti-aircraft missile, the one chosen was HMS Coventry, and a Type 22 frigate, Broadsword, with its modern radar.
We could see a target over land, which the Type 42 could not, probably. We had not the range of weapon to deal with it, but Coventry had in our case. And so we could electronically indicate what we were seeing on our system by data link straight into the Coventry's fire control system, and she could then fire Sea Dart on that data with effect.
This combination gave the British in San Carlos much needed warning. The 2 ships inevitably became targets.
Ese día era el aniversario de nuestra patria. Dijimos cuando llegamos a la sala vamos a festejar nuestro día como corresponde. Los ingleses sabían que lo íbamos a festejar y mandaron 2 fragatas, una serie 42 que era la Coventry y una serie 22 que era la Broadsword como piquete de radar, o sea, para avisar todos los ingresos de aviones de la Fuerza Aérea.
On the 25th of May, we were attacked by simply 2 pairs of A4 Skyhawk aircraft.
nos empezaron a tirar desde mucho antes. Pegaban cortos los impactos, o sea, yo veía explosiones en el aire y el agua como si danzara, como si bailara el agua delante nuestro, pero corta, o sea que adelante. Y veíamos que esa pared, como pared de fuego, se aproximaba muy rápidamente, hasta que entramos adentro de ella.
And so we rattled off a seemingly inescapable wall of small arms led at this threat and were bombed.
Tiré, pienso que corta, porque tenía miedo de chocar contra la fragata. Salté la fragata, miré por mis espejos y no... en el momento en que tiré, sentí varios impactos abajo. Entonces dije, me dieron, pero le pegué, creo.
Luck or no luck, we were hit by one bomb aft, which passed right through the ship, having bounced off the sea, but it did not explode.
Y yo grité, viva la patria, canejo, aprendan gringos de mierda.
So you can imagine the situation at that moment. We'd had a failure with Seawolf. We were wrestling with it because we were aware of another raid coming out and we wanted to be ready to deal with it. We'd been hit with a bomb aft. There was a lot of activity to establish what we could still do, having been hit. And I suppose for a moment or two, bearing in mind there were 100 seconds or thereabouts between the arrival of the two raids, I'm quite certain that momentarily I lost sight of the second raid until somebody said, aircraft green 20, which was a visual indication from the bridge that to starboard by 20 degrees could be seen this other raid coming in. And my excellent team, and they were excellent, they were pounding the keyboard of this system of ours to bring the Seawolf back into control, which they succeeded in doing, and we lined up on this approaching second threat. And I could, again, clearly see it coming in on the little television monitor that I could see from where I was standing in the operations room. And we were about to deal with it when, to my horror, I saw in the television screen, which was looking down the line of sight, the Coventry's bow crossed that line of sight, which prevented us from firing. And then seconds later, she was hit by 2 or 3 bombs and blew up in a very spectacular way.
Coventry was the last destroyer the British lost in the war. The lesson for future warships is that they must be able to defend themselves independently. This is the design of the Navy's latest frigate, which will be in service well into the 21st century. As a result of the war, it's a more heavily armed ship with a 4.5-inch gun and 2 different missile systems.
Well, the initial design had no self-defense capability. It was built down to a very constrained cost. Way before the Falkland Islands, it was decided that it would have to have some self-defense. And it has 2 missile systems in it. One for tackling incoming sea-skimming missiles, a point defense missile system called the Seawolf. And one version of the Seawolf was, of course, used in the Falkland Islands, in the Type 22s. And it has a surface-to-surface guided weapon system which can tackle surface targets some distance away, and in this particular ship we have the Harpoon system.
Harpoon is the American equivalent of Exocet for attacking surface ships. In front of it is the silo for a longer-range version of Seawolf to be launched vertically. And as a direct result of the war, the ship has a shore bombardment gun. But this is also the Navy's first frigate designed to reduce its visibility to enemy radar. The technique is known as radar contouring. None of the surfaces is a true vertical, none of the angles an exact right angle. What will an incoming missile see of such a ship on radar?
What it will see is a very much smaller radar reflection, and it will see it in a less consistent manner. It will see, we hope, radar flashes, which could, of course, come from decoys or something of that sort. It won't be able to home in on a consistent thing it sees all the time.
The missile manufacturers have also learned from the war. The latest exocets have twice the range of those in the Falklands. And this is what the makers of Exocet have planned for the 1990s. It's a supersonic, sea-skimming missile that can travel over 100 miles in around 4 minutes. It's called ANS.
This missile is high supersonic speed missile, propelled with a ramjet. It will have a long range, and it will be a highly intelligent missile, which combining this intelligence and this high speed will be capable of overcoming the new type of defenses which will appear at the turn of the century. If we are speaking of the present type of countermeasures, in other words, the chaps and jamming devices, decoys, etc. And if we speak of the present type of anti-missile missiles, which are originally anti-aircraft missiles, and rapid-fire guns, these countermeasures of the present time, I would say of the 80s, broadly speaking, they will be absolutely inefficient against ANS.
To combat the next generation of missiles, other manufacturers have been developing sophisticated countermeasures. In this test chamber is the first active decoy designed to be fired from a ship. The decoy is specifically intended to divert an incoming missile by transmitting confusing signals into its homing head, which is why the system is called Siren.
Siren is the first one that transmits an active signal thoughtfully from off-board the ship. This means that it does not suffer from the disadvantages of being installed on the ship and then acting as a homing beacon. We put the homing beacon off the ship so that it can only be beneficial to the ship. Once fired, the Siren round deploys rapidly as a result of a short burning rocket. It deploys a parachute a few hundred yards away from the ship. It listens for the incoming missile, and then its own active side of it provides the messages back to the missile to say that it has got a better target than the ship, and it seduces the missile away from the ship and towards the decoy instead.
But could it cope with this?
It will be quite easy to make a salvo of several missiles arrive at the same time, so saturating the enemy defenses. And this will be all the more easy as the time of flight will be relatively short.
The manufacturers of the active decoy are undeterred.
Each missile, or several missiles at the same time, can be dealt with by a single siren. Each radar signal being dealt with one after another in very quick time, instantaneously to all intents and purposes.
Much thought has gone into the design of the warships of the future. They will be fitted with sophisticated countermeasures. But will they survive in the age of the supersonic missile?
In the aerospatial opinion, the INS will be capable of keeping this lead of the offensive weapon over the defensive weapons we think for a long period of time, and I think well into the 21st century.
The cost of testing the weapons and tactics used in the Falklands War was ultimately measured in human lives. Both sides felt that they fought for a just cause. The prospect of loss of life did not deter the combatants.
We'd been born of a generation of fighter pilots in the Fleet Air Arm who'd been engaged in many minor actions since World War II, and we'd been benefiting from all their experience and practicing their art. We didn't want to practice all our lives without fighting, so we were excited, a bit apprehensive, of course, but very keen that it should happen.
Si hay alguna enseñanza respecto de la guerra de Malvinas, como la veo yo, proviene del hecho de saber que en lo que hace a la aviación naval hemos combatido contra ingleses que son verdaderos profesionales en el arte de hacer la guerra. Desde nuestro punto de vista, creo que los oficiales de la aviación naval que intervinieron también lo somos. Tal vez lo realmente lamentable de todo esto sea que nos hayamos tenido que medir en estas circunstancias. No le quepa la menor duda que si fuera necesario volveríamos a hacerlo.